Good.
Thank you, Lois.
Thank you. And hello, everyone, and welcome to Inspiring Hope. I'm your host, Lois Herman, here to shine the light on folks who are making a difference in our world. And I have two very, very special folks joining me today. John Thompson, who I spent neighboring booth time with at the American Society of Dowsers a couple weeks ago. I loved his energy and was fascinated by the books he publishes. And John invited an extra special guest, Jody Bergsma, to join us. She's the author of several children's books that I am enamored with. So I am so excited to share the work that you both do. It is truly magical. Thank you so much for being here. Where do you want to start?
Why don't you start, John?
Okay, I'll begin with the fact that the publishing company is Illumination Arts Publishing. We started the book, the whole process, back in 1987. So I've been slaving this for a long time. But our initial beginning happened to be involving two channeled adult books. The first one was called, I'll hold this one up. First one was called The Death of the Prophet. You can see this here.
Yeah.
That's the completion of Kahlil Gibran's trilogy that started with The Prophet. About that, he was in the middle of the second book, which was The Garden of the Prophet, when he passed away. And so his editor then finished that book. The only book, The Death of the Prophet, the only thing he ever said about it, he wrote a letter to his brother telling him the storyline and said that the book would come after he died.
Really?
And it came through a channel from Southern Oregon. And then after that book had been published by another publisher, he received information from John Lennon after Lennon passing. And that became our second book. I'll hold that one up. It's called
At last.
Peace at Last, The After-Death Experience of John Lennon. And at one point, a friend of ours up in Bellingham, Washington, introduced us to her first children's writings. And she had a friend who wanted to do the illustrations, and not realizing that it's best to have a single focus, not doing every other book, we decided, well, let's publish a children's book. And that was called All I See Is Part of Me. It went on to where we did that book and then a couple of other books. And at one point, a national metaphysical magazine decided to start doing an annual award of the best metaphysical books published every year. And they decided to start out with their looking back at all of the ones that have been published up to that point for their first awards. And out of the 4 children's books that they selected, 2 of them were ours.
Wow.
Yeah. And so that kind of got us thinking, well, maybe we should do more of this. And it was a lot of fun. We moved our company to a town called Bellingham, Washington, up in the north part of, not too far from Vancouver, Canada. And we, in that town, there was a very well-known person who's widely known. In fact, she was named the Outstanding Businesswoman of the Year a couple of years before we moved there. And she was an artist named Jody Bergsma. She had this fantastic business location right off the freeway with this stylistic, very large gallery showing all of her, some of her many artworks. And Jody had such an interesting thing about her that she had a whole variety of styles. She had started out doing primarily children's, and here's I'll show you this book here. That's her one book that she published called
The Right Touch.
The Right Touch, about inappropriate touching. And this became an international favorite in that area. And then, so basically, we finally, though, a few years after we started the publishing company, we kept showing submissions to Jody saying, would you be able to illustrate this book? And it turns out because Jody had so many products at her store, like T-shirts and mugs and everything you can imagine she needed to have books that could have images that would work for that.
Mhm.
And so we finally submitted a book called Dreambirds. And I'll show you the cover of that book. And this would be became our first book with Jody. But look at the images, parts of this book here.
Looks very Native American. Is a
Very.
Native American connection there, Jody?
Oh,
Yes,
boy.
there is.
Okay, that's
So this is
beautiful.
one of the illustrations from that book, which I would love to see. Have you seen it?
Almost looks Incan
Oh,
or
boy.
South American.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Very. So basically, that became very popular right away. And then Jody decided that she was going to start becoming an author as well as an illustrator. And that's where the book that you saw called Dragon came up.
Oh my goodness. I can look at
And
this.
this is a wonderful story of a young prince born on the same day as a fire-breathing dragon. And the prince was very gentle. He wanted to be in the forest with his animal friends. And the ruler, oh yeah, there we go. That's where the child was born. And so basically, the advisors of the king, though, thought that the young prince would never be strong enough to rule the kingdom. He was just so gentle and playing, there we go, yeah, playing with his friends in the forest. And so at one point, he was told by a swan one evening that he needed to conquer the dragon or he could never become king, because the dragon was causing havoc. He was fire breathing now, and he was raiding, really just causing all kinds of problems. And so it gets down to where the prince sets out at a lively pace with his on his horse, but by the time he gets to the top of the mountain, all he has left is his cloak. And he jumps on top of the dragon, pulls the cloak over the dragon's head, and there he's setting out. Here's the ruler, the advisors who are not too happy about this. So basically, the dragon goes soaring up in the air, comes crashing down and into the land of the elves, Nagala. And at that point, they're both kind of injured, but the prince helps the dragon recover. And turns out as the dragon's about to escape, the prince calls out. And the dragon realizes that this is his very first friend. And so when they go riding back to the kingdom, he's riding on the back of the dragon. And so it was that the kingdom of between the worlds was united again.
I love how John knows everything about.
John, I just am so impressed.
Oh,
I'm
he
Well,
so pleased.
yeah.
Well, it's been only 20 years since we did that book. So
That's great memory.
then
Yeah.
Jody's next book came up, and it was a continuation of that book. So here's this one, Wizard.
Oh,
So
you
where the
didn't have
dragon is
wizard.
helping in this book too.
You
And it's
didn't have wizard there. Ooh,
Wizard.
nice.
The young boy living alone, his mother becomes very sick, and he realizes that he needs to go to the Queen's well to create the healing water for his mother.
Mm.
And along the way, he's got his cat with him, of course. And I have two cats now that are always with me whenever I'm here. And then he becomes a wizard along the way. And so that's the transformation of the whole queendom. You might as run by a queen. And then the final book comes also with the dragons, and that includes fairy. So in this beautiful book, suddenly there's a pow comes over the whole world, and the fairy queen sends 2 or 3 of her fairies out to investigate, and they encounter the little wizard along the way.
Oh,
And so the 3 of them were going in, and they keep getting, it keeps getting darker and darker as they go on. It turns out the Goblin Queen has cast a spell over the whole world.
so
And then basically they get actually put into the Queen's prison. But
I
through a
love
whole,
the
go
detail.
ahead.
the cats and expressions, and even the fact that your plants have like holes in the leaves, so they're not it's not perfect. It's surreal reality. It's beautiful.
And then Jody also investigated to find the perfect, you might say, Celtic symbols for both those books. All three of her trilogy have gorgeous, authentic Celtic symbols. And of course, finally, in the end of that book, they find that by treating the queen with love and respect, washing her feet and so on, she becomes the new queen. So that's so basically then Jody, I've known Jody now for, my God, oh wow, at least almost 25 years now. And she never gets old. She's something else. And so I'm gonna put her on now to chat. I think I've done my initial presentation here.
Oh, that's wonderful.
John. Good job.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jody. By the way, Jody disguised something in The Wizard, which she's never revealed publicly that I know, but I'll show you on the first page of the Wizard book. I don't know if you can see this carefully enough, but in this corner, this upper corner,
yeah.
Let me get closer. What you can see is that there's the, she's writing her own book. She's a toad writing the book. And that's Jody's nickname, Jode the Toad. As far as I know, it's not ever become publicly known. That's how she announced it, was by having the toad sitting up in the corner of that first page of that book, writing the book.
That's
right.
She likes hiding stuff in her artwork.
Magical.
Magical.
How did you get started with all this? I understand that you've been doing this since you were a babe.
I did. I started painting when I was really young. And one of the things people often ask me is, how do you encourage a young child that shows talent? And I had the right family. So painting at a young age, buying me art supplies, putting the artwork up on the refrigerator, all the things we all know to do for kids. And I turned into an exceptional young artist. So at 13, I started selling my paintings door to door to the neighbors. So I not only had the artistic, temperament, but I also had the salesman in me, which is one of the ways you can have magical art, but how do you get it out to the people? You have to have that little salesman energy that says, hey, look at me, look at this. And so I'm going to share some of these very early paintings. When I was just a teenager, I started doing illustrations like these, and I would take them to the art shows and people would just eat them up.
Yes.
So you can see the dragon. That's the dragon that's in the dragon story.
Yes.
And there was also little big-eyed children.
I was going to say this looks like the Precious Moments kind of drawing.
That it was very much part of that era. And then there I am on a branch, Jode the Toad the Frog.
Jode the Toad.
And you can see that there was just so much fantastical content in the paintings. This is a series
when you were a teenager?
Yeah.
Young teenager.
So I went to my first art shows when I was 15, and I would sell everything I took.
Oh.
And I could make 1,000 paintings a summer. It was phenomenal.
It is phenomenal. So you must have been like channeling, just driven to draw.
And I had a channel that came and lived at my horse ranch for a while in my guest house. And he said, oh, Jody, when I go out and meditate at night and sit in front of the glass doors, look out over the forest, there's these big-eyed children that come and stare at me through the glass. And he says, they look remarkably like your paintings. So, that little touch, believing in fantasy when I was a child, having a super active imagination, created this body of work. And then by the time I was 25, I started creating prints. And then that blossomed into enough money within 5 years. you know, I was really selling a lot, and I was able to finance that huge gallery in Bellingham. And so that spiritual journey with the fantasy led me to having people from all over come to the gallery. And some of the people that came would be like metaphysicians and also Native Americans. And a Native American came and he said, I'm a shaman and I have some things I need to share with you. And so I got trained by some shamans. And then I started realizing that all these different energies were coming and giving me ideas and saying, you can be the one that paints the pictures. There's lots of people that can write the words, but there's hardly anybody that can paint the pictures. And so then I had this river of inspiration that came in. And the other thing that this channel one time told me, he said, the way you paint nature is the way people see the world on the astral plane.
Yes. Beautiful.
So already I'd had an inner vision that was very attuned to the inner worlds. And the inner worlds, of course, are inhabited by a bunch of very remarkable creatures.
Yes.
And they too will come and visit. So not only are you seeing this astral world, but you're seeing all the inhabitants. And I would have these crazy dreams. And out of the dreams would come new paintings.
Whoa.
So in the world of my development, as I was doing quite a bit of Native American artwork, let me show you something like this.
Oh,
And this was the medicine pipe of the Native American shaman that came and met me. And he came and spent quite a bit of time with me. And his
is that mountain lion or bobcat?
mountain lion and a wolf.
Yeah.
Representing the fire element, and the pipe also represents the fire element or connection to spirit.
I'm going to show you one of my images from Jody's book, Dreambirds, which is really powerful, powerful. Can you see that?
Yeah, it is powerful.
When the
Jody, you're even the scary creatures in your books don't look threatening. There's expression in there, but they don't look scary or foreboding. They look, you capture the essence of the story without the fear. Like so many of the fairy tales, the books of the fairy tales, the goblins and stuff are really, really scary. Your goblins are, you look at them and you look at the detail and yeah, they're believable. They look like people that are a little on the grumpy side, right? Wow.
Well stated.
Along with the native shamans that came and met me, there was just so many interesting people from all walks of life. And there was a lot of input coming in from the spirit world through these people. And I really found inspiration through, I was very accessible to the public. And people would come to the gallery and talk to me about mystical things. I'd have people show up and say, Jody, this is who you were in a past life, and this is what you've done. And I'd be like, wow, that's really quite amazing. And then, the evolution of the children's work started taking on a more sophisticated form. Can you see this woman holding the dragon?
That is magical.
And here is a dragon on the moon.
Goodness, how magical.
And here's a fairy riding a butterfly.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
and
wow.
Here's one riding a dragonfly.
I had a dragonfly visit me this morning in my garden.
Oh, now you have another one visiting. So you can see that there was like the children's work that was evolving, and there was the Native American work that was starting to spill out from originally me painting what I saw on the astral plane.
Mm.
And I would have Native Americans come around me, and when they talked to me, my mind would be filled with visions. And I would just go and draw them down. I could sketch them very quickly. All those years doing 1,000 paintings a summer made me an incredibly prolific and fast painter.
Amazing. Now, do you do mostly watercolor or different acrylic or different modalities?
I have moved to some different kinds of modalities. This is a painting done with oil paint.
Okay.
And so is this one.
Eagles.
So you can see that there's different forms, but really the watercolor was the thing I chose to do when I was young because it has so little toxicity. You know, if you're an oil painter, you have to be set up in a room where the fumes don't get to you. I know quite a few artists that as they experience a life with all that linseed oil and the off-gassing, it's just not good for health. So I was very fortunate to be a watercolorist.
Cool.
And that contributes to the softness of so many of these. The watercolor, the images are very soft. Yeah, here's a picture of the goblin queen, you know.
Oh, yeah, she's not very scary. Funny.
Tries to be scary.
She
She wants to be scary.
She might be scary to some, but you know.
Well, maybe if you're little, she'd be very scary.
Maybe if so, yeah.
I'm gonna show you another one of my favorite pictures from the Dreambirds book. Here, I'll hold it back and back and back. Can you see that one?
Yeah, that was like an owl.
Oh, yeah, isn't that a fascinating image?
That's actually an interpretation of the young boy sitting by a fire, and he has a vision, and out of the fire comes a white eagle.
Okay.
And the white eagle wants to speak to him. And I want to tell you, I had a very interesting experience with shamans that showed up to the gallery probably like in 1991. And they had come from all over the country. And they had come because they wanted to tell me that they'd been told that I was going to paint a prophecy. And I had this big show that was just about ready to be launched. And the shamans smoked out the gallery with incense, and they ran around and threw salt all over the floor, and drummers came in with their big drums. And when I used to do my shows, I had all the paintings covered with paper. And at a certain hour, all the paper would come down and the place would be packed. And in this case, the shamans were there and they had drummers, and it was just the most spine-tingling, hair-raising experience I could possibly imagine. And a group of the shamans had come from New Mexico, and they were all dressed in black. So when the papers came down from the paintings, they looked at them and they said, "This is the one." And it was a painting called Beyond the Golden Door, where a huge white eagle was coming into the world from a geometric form. And over the top of the geometric form were 3 white eagle heads. They were the council. Oh. And they said, "It's happened. The white eagle has returned." And that was the experience I had with them.
God on that. That's amazing.
Some really great stories.
Mm.
Wow.
The walk into metaphysics for me was beginning to understand that the spirits from outside of us are trying to speak to us and inspire us. Mm-hmm. And if you're willing to listen to them, and maybe the whisperings are just dreams, or maybe they're just imaginings, but you need to understand that when those things come to you, it's like a gift. And if you can sketch them down and do the work, then they'll continue to come. And I've heard stories of people that had an idea for a book, and of course it's coming in from outside, and the person didn't get the job done. So the spirits leave them and go to somebody else and tell them the story so they can get the job done. And John has been very good at making sure that he's listening and trying to find access points for some of these stories and truths to come through to kids. So you've met the right publisher.
Very beautiful. Yeah, I know the books that I've written, were based on channeled sessions with a client. However, I would be awakened at 3 a.m. with my guides saying it's time to write. So I had my segments of the explanation of the sessions to write, and I wrote them all between 3 and 5 a.m. I would be awakened. I would get up where pure, quiet, and I would channel the information or get a download, or however you want to call it. And by 5 o'clock, and I would do it all by longhand. And then 5 o'clock, I was tired. I'd go back to bed, sleep for a couple of hours, get up and start my day. And then I would later go in and transpose all of that to typed word. And I look back now when I read it, I'm going, where'd that come from?
Good.
Because I was listening, and I just said yes. And when you just say yes, magic happens, right?
Yes, I used to wake up and have visions from my dreams and would draw them down. And then I started a whole routine for years where I got up every morning at 4
Okay.
Wow.
and would go and paint. From 4 to 8, I would have an 8-hour day in. And that's how I got all the artwork done.
I once asked Jody how she ever come up with all these different images. They're so fascinating. She said, "Oh, John, I don't have nearly that time I would need to do all the ones I've already seen. I've got all kinds of them waiting to be done." Yeah.
Well, I truly admire your gift of the ability to capture the essence, even the rabbits and the animals in there. You've really captured the essence of the beings, and that's a gift. That is a talent, a skill, and a gift. That's not something I've never been one. I'm artistic in the form of design, feng shui, decorating kind of thing, but never been one to really be able to capture it on paper the way you do. So I consider myself an art appreciator. And when I saw your books, I was like, oh, this is so magical.
Another real quick story is some other shaman that came into the gallery. I mean, we had so many interesting visitors. I mean, I had people show up with wolves and eagles and a tiger. It was just such
like a real tiger,
real tiger on a leash. Anyway, one of the people that came in was also a Native American shaman, and they toured. Apparently the word got out, and they would tour the gallery. And I heard from somebody else that they believed I was a reincarnated Native American person, and they would have these conversations with me. And one of them said, "What we don't know is why the animals let you capture their souls in your work."
Whoa.
Mm-hmm. You do. Whoa. You do. It is
so amazing. When you see one of these animals, their radiant energy is going to come right through the eyes of the painting.
So true.
Now, do one of you have Sky Castle there handy?
I do.
Often when I've with people in my booth selling books, I say, well, this book has my favorite illustration in all of children's publishing. But Lois, open it up to go about the 6th painting in, the 6th illustration in, where the big horse, the big face of the horse is on the left side of the page.
Yes. This one.
Look at all the aspects of that book. Move it over slightly so they can see the.
Both the contrast.
See that Jody is wearing a red string right now. Yeah. So that was one of the ways she identified herself subtly. And on the final page of that book, the final illustration, isn't that amazing? That's her. That's Jody, right beside the dragon. Yes. And then go to the last illustration.
Okay.
Because Jody had a special leather-bound version printed. She did a few hundred copies of a leather-bound version.
And the frog is free. The token is free.
Yeah, the frog is promoting the leather-bound version there. Anyway.
So true. That is so funny. I thought of that. That's so great. What an insight.
Joe the Toad. When did you get that nickname for yourself?
Well, when I was young, I had a very interesting childhood in that my dad was a seaplane pilot, and he was a bush pilot, and we lived on the edge of a lake. And the docks where the planes parked, my favorite thing to do would be to go out and lie on the dock and look underneath the top planks, because underneath were the floats, and underneath there would be little frogs. And they never ceased to entertain me. I just thought the frogs were the greatest thing. So I adopted them as a totem. And of course, they represent prosperity and abundance.
And health. They're also health, yeah.
And so the frogs just became something, and my name is Jody. And so my brothers started calling me Jode the Toad. And they thought it was like this negative thing, but I'd always heard or believed that it was good to have a name that was not boastful, but humble. And I adopted it my whole life.
Wow.
Plus, Jody has some fascinating brothers. One of them is a very well-known photographer, right, Jody?
Yep, my brother Mark. He's done amazing work. And he also had a gallery. So we definitely had a footprint in our small Northwest town. But now we're both retired.
You're completely retired, but we can all find your books through John, is that right?
Well, you can still contact me through, but I don't have a staff anymore. And the staff were the ones that ran the credit cards and ran the website. So the website is up, but if you wanted something, you'd have to email me.
Okay.
And my daughter, who has moved back to Bellingham, is getting ready to launch a new website and take over the next generation.
So did she adopt your gifts?
No.
Well, she can paint beautifully, but she actually is focusing on finding new ways to market my work. And she actually has a huge plan for some of those really early paintings that I showed you right at the beginning. And she says their time is come again.
Yes.
So we'll see what she does. She has big plans, but you know, when you turn 70, it's time to take your breaks. You know,
Really? I never heard that
take
before.
your breaks, but I always had a dream of running a horse ranch. So we're doing other things that just don't have to do with my original career. I always had to deal with all the entities that I worked with that at one time they would have to let me retire and pursue this other dream of mine, which is to have horses.
So you're not painting any new paintings?
I do paint a little bit, but I'm painting in new styles and in new ways that don't really have that much to do with this work. The things are fairly abstracted, scenic paintings with thick paint. I was always inspired by Van Gogh with his sticky, thick paint brush strokes. And so I'm doing, you know, reinterpretations of the mystical San Juan Islands, but with this new oil painting style. And they're just fun. They're for me, and I'll probably sell them at a gallery sometime. But really, I have just so much fun. I'm riding all the time now. I'm back riding horses. We just bred 2 of our mares to a beautiful Andalusian stallion, and we're gonna do some magic with animals because we believe certain things about how you can call in spirits and call in beauty, and that's what we decided to do.
Wow. And horses are magical in and of themselves. They are powerful animals.
Yeah, we have some beautiful, beautiful horses here.
Well, I'll be seeing you in about a month. I'd like to see some samples of the new work.
Okay, I'll show you.
Cool. Jody has the coolest house I know of. It's on top of a hill. She's got more treasures around that house. Every corner seems like it's got an amazing treasure in it. So yeah, I can see how you would think about wanting to retire at some point, but maybe in 15, 20 years might be a better time.
The runway gets short.
Well, you know, it's about slowing down and doing what your heart is called to do without having the pressure and just allowing things to.
I always had a phrase that I would tell myself, and it was, you need to follow the excitement to release the synchronicity.
That's pretty
much. I like that one.
Because synchronicity is what the world calls magic.
But you've only been doing this painting professionally for only about 56 years. Are you sure it's time to slow down?
I know. I started my business when I was, 20, 70. Wow.
Started when you were 14. You were selling.
Well, I started painting and selling. Those were the days, because people would give me cash for my work and I'd buy a bicycle. It was so exciting when you're that
awesome.
How come you could only do 1,000 paintings in the summer? That's only 300 a month.
Amazing.
It was an amazing thing. I had my younger sister at the time she was 11 and I was 14, and she would help paint the backgrounds.
Oh.
So cool. I would do the drawings, and while I was drawing them, I would cut little pieces of paper out and have, for a show, we'd do 100 paintings, maybe 100 in a week.
Oh my God.
And I would start drawing the little fairy, and she would paint the background in, and then I'd put in some of the colors, and I'd tell her to put in some of the colors, and then I'd do the drawing ink lines, and it would be done.
Wow.
And we could do 20 a day.
Oh, no, really?
Fun. It was joy. You just, it was
We
not.
had so much fun. In the end, I think that she was a little burned out, but she went on.
But she burned out early, huh?
You share some of that
Takes a
pocket
lot.
change.
I mean, people don't realize that if you really want to paint, you have to create a lot of art. There's a wonderful theory called the 10,000 hour theory, which may or may not be a real number, but it just says that when you put so much time into something, it all of a sudden releases you into a state of mastery. And the person that I heard it from wrote a book about the Beatles and how they had 10,000 hours writing songs and performing in Germany before they became a hit. And the time to get people started is when they're young, because they don't have bills to pay, they don't have a house to clean. You can get them started on a career based on something they love, and they can be so far ahead of their peers by the time they're 18,
Right.
that nobody can catch up.
They have to have a passion for something, and that's the I think that's the key, is if they have a passion for something, you foster that passion. So kudos to your parents for recognizing that in you and helping you to blossom.
Yes.
Well, I'm with John. We're going to continue to promote your books. I've already decided I need to get the wizard. I have the fairy and the dragon and the sky castle, but I'm going to have, this is just for me. I'm going to have to get some.
How about Dragon though? I mean, Dreambirds. I'll send you a copy of Dreambirds just for fun. Yeah.
In the vein of the children's books, I want to mention that I've also done some decks with US Games.
Okay.
And one is based on my fantasy artwork.
Okay.
Wow.
And the other one is based on my animal artwork.
Oh, is that
These are games now?
the animals?
The US Games, they're a bit like an interactive book, because they come with, all these cards with all the animals on them.
Right.
And they have sayings on the bottom. And then they have a book that you can, if you pick one of the cards for your inspiration of the day. So today I picked the loon. And it will talk a little bit about loons are an intuitive creature, to make sure that you activate your own intuition and believe it. And then if you want to find out more about it, you can look it up in a book.
Sure.
Oh,
so these decks,
very cool.
There's a new deck coming out at the end of this year that's called The Light on the Path, and it's based on this artwork. This is just a printout I did from the publisher, and it has a girl walking up to a lighthouse, a light on the path, and it is a deck that you'll pull affirmations for the day to help guide you in your life.
Love it.
Whoa.
Just love it. Yeah. Beautiful.
So I've continued the work, and obviously I have a huge body of paintings, and it's been available for me to then once again use inspiration to figure out what kind of saying should go with the artwork, what would illuminate that, what takes a painting like this and turns it into a story with just a few words. And this one says, the greatest success is to live life in your own way.
Whoa.
So that gets people thinking about, what does that mean? Why did she write those words with this fairy on a dragonfly? And what does a dragonfly mean? Well, a dragonfly is a symbol of metamorphosis and change and evolution. So it's really been very fun to do this work.
Thank you for the work you do. Thank you for inspiring the little children and the child in some of us elders.
The child is always there.
Do you have any estimate of how many paintings you've done in your life? Any round, wild estimate?
Clearly over 10,000.
That's incredible. Just incredible.
I mean, I can't even remember them all. So
I would think you can.
10,000 is a lot.
That is a lot. That is a lot. Wow. Well, we're going to continue to talk because I have some thoughts.
Keep going.
So
Yeah.
thank you so much for sharing, and thank you just for being who you are. So
thanks for giving us this opportunity, Lois.
yeah,
Really
That's been
appreciate
nice.
it.
any
Nice to
last thoughts? Who are so many people are disenfranchised in this world right now. Do you have any messages of hope? This is called Inspiring Hope. Any messages based on your intuitive guidance that you would like to share with people?
Jody, you go first.
I would like to tell people that they can rekindle their enchantment. Rekindling the enchantment is sort of like hope, but it's really a little bit more, because hope is a little vague, but enchantment means that you're really starting to see the potential of the magic that you can have in your life and call it in. Ask for help, ask for guidance, feel that you live in a magical world.
So be it. Well, I will say that when when I do my events around the country, I did like 30 some last year, weekend events. One thing I tell everybody is just the main reason we're here is to realize who we are. Know that you're a divine being having a human experience, period. And part of that came with an audience I had with Sai Baba back in 1980. It was actually an audience I snuck into. And he started out after doing some miracles and so on. He says, the rishis are in the forest. What are they doing? They're breathing. What are they breathing? They're going, so hum, so hum. What does this mean? He asks. Then he analyzed the Sanskrit root of so hum to mean, I am divine, I am God. Somebody says, Swami, how often should we do this? He says, there are 24 hours in a day. You breathe 21,600 times every day. Very soon you realize that you're God. Very soon. So that's what I encourage people to do, is just self-realization is realizing you're a divine being. That's it. Like Jesus said, the kingdom of God is within you. That's very simple. How else could it be more clear? But they never talk about that in church. Anyway, that's the main thing I have to say.
Very nice, John. Thank you.
Cool.
Fabulous. This was
Great seeing you, Jode.
Great seeing you. See you in a month.
Yeah. Bye, sweetheart.
Bye.
next time, everyone, please. Thank you both. Look up, stay positive, and be the light in someone's day.
So be it. Bye-bye.
Bye, John.